James, do you want to do the intro this week?
I don't know, Sarah, do you want to do the intro?
No, 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 no.
No? Okay. Hello, and welcome back to Belmont Bunch. This week, we are going to go over the 4 games that the Islanders did, and we have a special guest, Tom Carosa. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
The old bait and switch.
Yes, we have a special guest, Sara from Isles Twitter. You've probably seen her around. So, Sara, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into the games, and then we'll go back and talk about your Isles story and why you're such a diehard Isles fan.
Okay, well, I'm 26. I obviously have lived on Long Island my whole life, so being an Islanders fan was kind of a no-brainer for me, in a way.
Yeah, you almost didn't have a choice.
Pretty well. When I tell my origin, my Isles origin story later, you'll understand why.
Okay, all right. So
that's the perfect place to leave off.
Yes.
And it sounds like the beginning of like a comic book movie.
Tom, why don't you start us off? This week, we swear, we're going to do a brief overview of the 4 games that went on. Tom gave me his word, so
yep,
he's probably lying.
Why don't you time it? Why don't you time it, James?
All right, I will.
Do you want to time it? Do a total time, because I think I'm going to be very, very quick with the Devils especially.
I'm gonna start the stopwatch. Okay.
What are we aiming for?
I don't know. 10 minutes for all 4 games?
I was going to say 5.
All right, so 10 minutes. So we'll say 5, which means 10, which really means 20. So, all right, I'm going to press start. So we're going to go over the games. Sara, feel free to jump in if you have anything you wanted to add about, because we're going to start with the first New Jersey game. And we'll just kind of go from there. Sound good?
Absolutely, yep.
All right, go for it, Tom.
All right, game 1, the Isles, their first of 3 straight against the Devils, which came on the heels of playing Buffalo a bunch. So, of course, even though the Islanders could have gone 4-0 in 3 games, and hockey Twitter would not have been sufficiently pleased with the Islanders. But the Islanders did a really good job of just kind of smacking down in 2 of the games a less than fantastic team. Matt Martin got a 5th goal, matching, I think, his total from all of last year. So that is very cool. Adam Pelech got a goal, his 2nd. Adam Pelech is showing a little bit of offensive flair, and his defensive numbers are like still stellar. So he's not sacrificing offense for defense. Even Josh Bailey scored in this game, and I don't hate Josh Bailey, but he has struggled a little bit recently. He's had a lot of like clear one-on-one chances with goalies that he hasn't converted, but he was able to convert and made it 4-0 going into the 3rd of that first game. And the Isles gave up a couple of goals that I'm sure they'd love to have back in that game. Yanni Kuokkanen, which is just a fun name to say, from Jersey. Jersey, the one thing you could say is they know that this is like a development year, so they're starting a lot of kids. And it's like, even though they're losing, I think they're gaining like plenty of valuable experience. And Jersey has a good goalie in Mackenzie Blackwood. Although against us, we destroyed Mackenzie Blackwood, so I don't get it. But we can't score on Wedgwood, and I wish they'd have 2 goalies with further names, different names, because I constantly forget which Wood played against us. Mikhail Maltsev, another fun name, scored the 2nd for Jersey, and I think Sorokin gave up a couple in this game that were a little bit shaky. He had one where he didn't close off the post, and it was just kind of a backhand, and you're like, oh no, you look like Nabokov for a second there. But Ryan Pollock had a play where he threw it to the net and Brock Nelson tipped it in, and it kind of just saw out that game for the Isles, and generally just a decent performance, really dominant through 2. I'm sure Trotz, because he's so, engrossed in the details of the game, will not be happy that they gave up 3 in the 3rd, but it was still a pretty nice win.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot they didn't score at all until the 3rd.
Yeah.
Or New Jersey. And that's the game that unfortunately Anders Lee got hurt in.
Yes, I thank you for mentioning that, because I think it's a big moment for the Isles to, in that game and in the ensuing 2 games, play some of their most impressive like defensive play outside of the third period of the first game of the year. I think they were probably playing for the captain a little bit, and they played an excellent second period with Anders out. And
he got injured in the first?
Yeah, I believe so.
I keep on mixing that up. I thought he got injured in the second game, and you guys corrected me. And so.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the team showed a really good response to losing its captain. That's what I took out of these 3 games, if that 3-game stretch. The second game, Bellows rescued us. We were down 2-1. We weren't playing especially well. I see it. And Kiefer Bellows, who Barry Trotz was all over a few weeks ago, is able to get both goals in the third, propel us to a 3-2 win. The second one was like an insane power move that I've actually seen Tavares do before, back against Calgary in like 2011 or something. So great stuff. And Bellows, you could tell from the celebration after he scored both of those goals, he was pumped. And I think Barry lit a fire under him by, kind of giving him some stick for his performance earlier in the season. And yeah, that second game was, Varley played fine. I don't think that was the game where he got he's how many times this year has he like fallen in the crease, which is the only knock against Varley. Recently, the Islanders goaltending hasn't been as like stellar, but like that's saying like, they went from like Vezina level to just really good. So, just a couple of goals here and there where you're like, but they're already up by a bunch. In the third game, we had the COVID stuff, and Kiefer Bellows got us started. Sebastian Aho hadn't played a game in 3 years, and he just gets an assist on his first shift. That's pretty cool. Yanni Kuokkanen, who scored in all 3 games for Jersey, so good for him. I'll keep an eye on him every time the Islanders play the Devils from now on, and I'll get very angry at him every time he scores. Brock Nelson got one. Brock Nelson now, I think, is tied for the team leading goals. So he was someone that I think stepped up a little bit after Anders Lee went down, and he got 2 goals in the 2 games without him to that point, the first 2 games. And the Isles somehow prevailed in a shootout. It was one of the weirdest games ever. Dobson got scratched last minute. He actually seems to have COVID because he's going to be out the full 2 weeks. We didn't have Pajot. Zarnik jumped in. I thought Zarnik was fine. He was kind of like a net even, maybe a little bit above that. He created a chance in OT that we almost scored on. And that was pretty much it. But between him and Dal Cole, I think it's like pretty much net even. So it's basically going to go based on who Barry is hot on at the moment. Mm-hmm. And then the Capitals game happened. One thing about Sorokin in the shootout game, he gave up a goal in the first attempt, and then he really looked like he adjusted on the spot, which is really impressive because, I was kind of considering like, oh no, it's a shootout. It's a rookie goalie in his first career shootout in North America. This is going to be tough. And when he gave up the first goal, I'm like, we got a point. And then, the Isles have this great comeback, this great fight to be able to stave off the loss with, I think Beauvillier kept them alive for the moment with a rip to the top corner. And Beauvillier's been great in the shootout, not great on the ice. Well, not great finishing chances in the games. I think he's actually been skating really well. And the Capitals game, I don't know, what did you guys think of the Capitals game?
I thought they spent too much time in their own zone and a lot of soft calls. Too many soft calls.
I completely agree with that. That was my biggest complaint was that there was the stick that I forget who it was, but somebody checked Barzal, their stick broke.
Oh yeah, he cross-checked him. Yeah,
and then
over his back.
Right, yeah, exactly. Like not on the padding, Mm-hmm. And then
he broke his stick in half. Good lord, he broke his stick over Barzy's back.
Yeah. What was the other one? The Mayfield one. Where like it looked like I can't remember who he got in a fight with, and the Capitals player instigated it, but they didn't show in the replay. They didn't show the very start of it, so I couldn't tell. Mm-hmm. But either way, like it was so weird. The Capitals player puts Mayfield in like a chokehold, and as soon as Mayfield tries to throw a punch, like the Capital player was cowering. Like I didn't get that at all. Like I must have missed some important context. I don't know.
I'm wondering if that's like. So Peter Laviolette, I saw a stat that he's now won 10 straight games as a coach against Barry head-to-head. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if Laviolette, who's a fantastic coach in his own right, is finding a way to get into the heads of our players. I don't know what that has to do with Barry, but it's more just like a fun stat. Oh, somehow he's won 10 straight against Barry, and they've outscored the Islanders 46-23. Laviolette coached teams, so I think that actually goes back to Nashville.
Because I was going to say, because Nashville was very.
They annihilated us
year.
He was the coach of Nashville when they annihilated us like 2 games in a row. I was there for the 8-3 loss. And it was like, oh my God, what is up with us against this specific team?
And now we know.
And now that coach is in our division, and that's not good.
Did they work together or something? Or something like that?
No, they're just, 2 of the more, probably the more experienced coaches in the league, 2 of the best coaches in the league. And Barry's got to make some adjustments to what you were saying about the Mayfield incident. I think that's probably they feel like they're in the Islanders' heads, right? Because the Islanders still haven't beaten them. And at that point in the game, what was that the end of the first that happened?
I want to say
the second. Yeah, so the Caps are winning, and I think they're getting the feeling of like, oh, we're like in these guys' heads. Like, they can't figure out a way to beat us right now. And they've beaten us in multiple ways. They beat us in a really tough playoff type game the first time around when we gave up that goal with like 20 seconds left way earlier in the season. And then the second game against them, we were up 3-0 after 1. It's a game where the Capitals had like nobody healthy, and they still managed to score 5. Or was it 6? Or the 6 was an empty netter. They got 5 in the second. And now they beat us now with their full lineup. They were able to beat us with like 3 different iterations of their team too. So that's a little bit unnerving for me. But I'm not on the ledge. I know a lot of people on Islanders Twitter seemed very like worried. But I'm kind of thinking it's one game. It's a good team. Like the Capitals are an excellent team right now. And even during the Islanders winning streak, they were like right with us. We didn't even gain separation from them in like a 12-game point streak.
So you think it's going to be like it's not going to be between Boston and the Caps? You think it's going to be like us and the Caps kind of like neck and neck at the end
Boston's
of the season?
kind of, I think they've only won 3 of 10 or now 4 of 11. I think they won last night. So I don't know. Boston's a team though that could always just turn it back on. They're really good. Philly, we'll get to Philly. I'm not extremely impressed with them. And like the Rangers are all right. Who am I missing? Oh, Pittsburgh. I selectively try to forget about Pittsburgh at any given time because they've hurt me so much this year.
So it's been 11 minutes and 15 seconds. So I think that's enough, unless there's anything else. Because I totally agree with Sarah.
The penalties, yeah.
I also think it's sometimes, I don't know how biased I am of like not paying attention to the calls that should have been made on the Islanders. Mm-hmm. Especially with Butch, he's such a homer. Like he's so, and like no matter, it's very rare that you see him saying a non-call or a call that wasn't I don't know how to say it, whatever, something that wasn't called against the Islanders. He'll normally say, I guess you kind of get away with it, and then he'll get like he'll get upset when thing happens.
Those things happen.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
I think the Barzal play specifically was interesting because I saw some Caps fans saying that Barzal was holding, I think it was Kuznetsov, was holding his stick that leading up to it, and that should have been called. And like I don't think anybody could argue that the cross check should not have been called. In my opinion, I would have liked them, like if you're gonna go with like either none of them are getting called or both of them getting called. I actually prefer both on that play because like once a guy breaks a stick over your back, that should probably be a penalty. And even if the refs, which they constantly do, they like try to even out penalties to make sure that one team I think I've said before that for referees in the NHL, it kind of seems like sometimes they're just like, whatever it takes to get us to the same amount of power plays for both teams by the end of the game, that means we called a good game. Not actually calling like what's been called. But I think that probably should have been 4-on-4. I guess I don't know if it would have mattered in the end. We've actually struggled at anything that isn't 5-on-4. Well, actually, our special teams have been, they started the year good.
Down. Yeah. I think in February they were good, but since March they've been not great.
Oh, yeah. The power play's been real bad. And the PK wasn't great last night.
I think it was the third New Jersey game. One of the refs had wasn't there. They didn't show up for the second period or something like that. I don't know what happened. So hopefully everything's fine with that ref, But that was, I don't know if it was, again, because there was only then one ref and the linesman on the ice. You're thinking well, now they're definitely gonna miss calls, So every missed call, you're like, oh, that's obvious because there's only one ref, rather than because they might have just missed it anyway, or it wasn't a good call, or wouldn't have been a good call. I don't know, but so yeah, that third, I think that was a third New Jersey game, or
I think so, and I think that also led to a classic Butch anger fit, because I think I want to say it was Cizikas had a breakaway and he got slashed and they didn't call it, and then when they looked at the replay, the only ref on the scene, they would have had a ref on both sides looking at it, but instead they just had the one guy watching from behind, and he didn't see that the slash came up to the hands, and my screen just died. So that's one where maybe the league should probably have more contingency plans for having backup refs. They have that for the playoffs. The regular season, I guess maybe this year specifically because of COVID stuff, maybe they can't just pull somebody, so.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
I think that maybe complicates. What are you going to do? Do you have tests on hand? Can you test somebody like that, get a result back? And you can't wait for the game, obviously. So it makes a lot of the logistics of this year a lot more difficult. But,
I'm sure.
But
anyway, so that was the games that we just had this week.
Those were the games.
That was the games, and so that was my fault that it took longer because I wanted to bring up some stuff too.
You dared to have input.
yeah.
Well, let's get to. I will segue us into the part where I don't have to have input. I want to hear, and we were going to hear Sarah's kind of just how you got into hockey, how you got into the Islanders, your origin story. Go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to say about 2015. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why. I just said, I'm going to start watching hockey. And I, looked through all the teams, and I was like, well, my dad was an Islander fan. He went to games a lot, starting in the mid-'70s. He was a fan during Cup years. So I was like most people with their sports teams, I'm going to do the same as my dad. And the first thing I really remember is the playoffs, the last playoffs at the Coliseum in 2015 against who did they play? Florida?
Oh, was that because I think Florida was in Barclays. I want to say that was the first year of Barclays. I think 14 was probably the Caps. Was it the Caps?
No, yeah, I think you're right. The last season at the Coliseum was the Capitals.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I've been watching for about 6 years now, but I did watch a little bit when I was younger. I remember 01, 02, the Sean Bates years, and then baseball kind of took over, and I'm a big Yankee fan. But I got back into hockey now, and like James was saying, I am on Isles Twitter. Fortunately, unfortunately, depends on the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see that you also have the Yankees banner Easter egg behind you.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So I actually, that's crazy because, yeah, because Tom and I are also Yankees fans. I've tried to get into baseball, and I pay attention, pretty much just during the playoffs. But Tom, we've actually been discussing maybe, in the future doing kind of talking about the Mets and Yankees because we have a few friends that are into the Mets, and then we're into the Yankees, so all kind of New York sports are conglomerating.
Little by little, we're gonna talk about every sport. I'm gonna talk about the Red Bulls at some point.
I'm more of a Cosmos fan myself. But.
Well, I was gonna say how dare you, but that's actually pretty cool. I've been to a lot of Cosmos games. They're very fun.
I went to not the first. I don't know if it was the first or one of them. The Cosmos Red Bulls game at Hofstra.
Oh yeah, they've dominated the Red Bulls a couple
That's
times.
so crazy, right?
Yeah. Hey, soccer is a funny game. On a given day, something weird can happen.
So then Sarah, so what was the last game you remember being at for the Islanders?
Actually, this is a good one. February, what was it, the 25th of last year? Islanders Rangers at the Coliseum.
No way! I remember watching that game.
Pajot's first game as an Islander.
Wow.
That was the last game I was at, and that was the last big thing I did before COVID.
That was his first game. Was in February.
Yep.
It was that close.
Yeah, we didn't win a game with him until the playoffs. But he scored in that game, I believe, right?
He did, but they lost.
Yeah.
And now
that was the one where he
indispensable.
Oh yeah, he's turned into a fashion icon too on Isles Twitter, against his will. It's just like pictures of him. I don't know where he took them, but apparently it looks like he's been in an old Navy ad or two.
Yeah.
But it's great.
I think the last game I went to was near the end of January. We played the Avs. It was and we won that game, and that was we had the same exact record or very similar record going into that game, and we had won. So that felt like a big one.
And that was 1-0, right?
I don't remember.
I want to say Anders League scored, and we won 1-0, and I was like, this is the most like stereotypical Islanders win ever. Play against like an offensive juggernaut, shut them out, and win 1-0. I was like, that's the most Islanders thing.
Mm-hmm. So then, Sarah, have you been to any playoff games? I think you mentioned, was that 2015 or is 2014?
14-15, right?
That's just the first one I remember like watching as a fan again.
Oh, you weren't there. You were watching.
No,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
That must have been a fun year to get back into it though, because that was just like one of the more entertaining seasons I've ever watched. And I mean, like, even though they lost that series, that was just intense from start to finish. And obviously with the Coliseum at that time looking like we were never going to play there again was just like, it was heartbreaking, but it also added to how much excitement there was around it.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anything else then about any like secret lore behind your Islanders origin story? It was more. It was kind of like something you wanted to pick up, and you definitely couldn't have been a Rangers fan. That would have been like, yeah,
absolutely not. Even though my uncle and all my cousins are Ranger fans.
Oh, do they live on Long Island?
Yeah, they.
Oh, traitors.
Yeah.
The only reason, before I was really into hockey, the past like 2 years, the main reason I was definitely more of an anti-Rangers fan than a pro-Islanders fan, because I don't remember. This is like definitely one of those weird memories that I'm not sure if it's real or if I made it up. When I was in probably kindergarten or first grade or whatever, on News 12 of all places, there was a story about how one of the Rangers players used his hockey stick as a weapon on the ice, I guess, for a fight or whatever. And I was like, that's not right. You can't do that. So ever since then, I've just hated the Rangers. I have no idea who it was. Don't even know if it happened.
That's not a bad reason to hate the Rangers.
I think it's there's a lot of good reasons to hate the Rangers.
Yeah, exactly.
But thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Awesome story. And now, why don't we go over what we think is going to happen for the games coming up? I have the schedule up on the screen right now, so the people watching the video can see. So today, we're recording this on the 17th, so tonight, when this comes out, it'll be the 18th.
Happy St. Patty's Day.
Yes, happy St. Patty's Day.
I was just about to say that.
So tonight at 7 p.m., we're playing the Flyers on Thursday. So, and then we're playing them 3 times in a row. What do you guys think is going to happen?
You can go first, Tom.
Okay. I think I really it's a big I think it's probably a bigger series for Philly than it is for us. So there might be some desperation there. It really kind of depends on what happens with Philly playing the Rangers tonight. And I'm sure as soon as we're done with this, I'm probably going to watch that just to keep an eye on Philly to temper my expectations or let myself get really excited for the next 3 games if they played bad tonight. But I think tomorrow we probably have the edge because Philly will be coming off of a back-to-back playing tonight. So, of the 3 games, only one of them is on the back end of a back-to-back. That's tomorrow. I would expect tomorrow to be a real chance for the Islanders to get – I feel like they're looking for a signature win because they had the 9-game winning streak, but I don't feel like they've gotten much credit from the league. I don't know if that factors into the Island, like Barry Trotz's. It probably doesn't at all, honestly. But I think the fans really want that signature, like a win to like stick in people's faces and be like, hey, they beat a real team. And I think Boston's a real team, and that was part of the 9-game winning streak. But people will talk about the shootout.
They'll always, and I think we do this to ourselves, but we don't want to like jinx the season and say we're so good. But
we are.
Yes. But the Boston thing, it's like it's always easy to assume, okay, they might be beating one good team, but can they beat like a few good teams? Kind of where it might just be a fluke that we're beating Boston, that we somehow just kind of have their number. So if we were able to really like stick it to Philly, and maybe the rest of the games against Pittsburgh or something like that too, like that would be that would really show a lot, I think.
Yeah. And this stretch is going to be really big. Like it's 3 against Philly. I know we're not going to talk about them, but 2 against Boston, 2 against Pittsburgh. So a really good opportunity for the Islanders in this stretch to, assert themselves a little bit. I would expect them to, I expect them to win tomorrow, to be honest. I think Philly coming off of, it will be 3 games in 4 days at that point for them. That's pretty tough.
Oh my God.
And the Isles, will be a little bit rested. They're going to be at home, where they've been excellent this year. And they get the second leg, the middle leg of the series at home as well. So I actually do feel pretty good about the first 2 games, with part of that being Philly having a tough schedule. I also think the Islanders really coming off that Capitals game, they probably, Trotz is probably reminding them, hey, we got to beat teams like Philly. And Philly being the 5 seed right now in a race for 4 playoff spots, it's an opportunity to put a team in the dirt and to basically solidify yourselves as a playoff team. And it's funny because, we're tied for first right now. So you don't want to think of that it is possible for, a team in our position to still miss the playoffs, but it is. It's a tough division. You never know. We won 9 in a row. I don't know if a Trotz team will ever lose 9 in a row, but we could have a tough 9-game stretch that keeps us, on our toes a little bit in terms of playoff seeding. And I think the key word there is seeding. We need home ice come playoff time. We're playing so well at home. It would be a shame to waste that in a playoff series and not get home ice for a series. So I think these 3 games are going to be, I would hope that the Isles get 4 points out of them. I think that's like my goal is like, all right, let's get 2 wins and start to put Philly a little bit out of it.
All right. Sarah, what do you think?
Like going off of what Tom was saying, I think the next 2 weeks or so is like really important with the just the teams that we're playing, because like coming off of Buffalo and New Jersey, I feel like people are kind of like, oh well, those were kind of like a given for them because they're not really great teams, and now they're playing these tougher teams like Boston and Pittsburgh, and they also don't have Anders Lee, and it's so, what am I trying to say? It makes such a difference not having him on the ice, because he's kind of like the linebacker of the team. Kind of, he throws himself around, and that his football experience kind of comes in handy.
Wait, did he play football?
Yeah, he played like high school football and was like a quarterback. And I got to see some of the highlight videos. It was like watching Anders Lee, the current man who's 235 pounds, take on a bunch of children. Like, he was so good.
But like this whole thing with Lee, and how everyone's like, oh, will they be able to do it without him? It kind of reminds me of I can't remember if it was 2016 or 2017 when Tavares was hurt and everyone was like kind of panicking in the same way they are now.
Yeah, I think that was the year. I want to say we missed the playoffs by like a point, but we lost to Tavares, and everybody was like, "All right, well, the Islanders are out of it." And then we won every single game we played without Tavares, which, by the way, was the first sign that we were going to be fine when he left. Little did they know, but I could see some similarities to that. It's losing your captain in both scenarios, and in this case, probably a little bit more of a beloved captain in Lee. So maybe more of a more morale loss.
Yeah, well, because obviously Lee isn't on the same level as Tavares, like play wise and like superstar wise. But it's kind
he
of
is to us though.
The same
Superstar to us.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
He's a superstar in our hearts.
Yes, exactly. I couldn't agree more. Especially like. I think that a lot of the young players, a lot of the young Islanders, could be looking to prove themselves. To be like, especially Bellows, you know.
Yes.
And I'm a little worried in the long run. Wallstrom might get a little bit of a big head because he has such a good shot. but I think he's still looking to like. I think a lot basically everybody in the team is still really looking to pull, and prove like they could do it. So, it's just like. I guess there could be a worse time for the captain to get injured in the season, but this just feels like we were really rolling with Andrews, well, with everybody, and Andrews was playing such a big part of it, so it's this is definitely gonna be a test to now play a bunch of teams more at the top of the division. So
and I was also saying the other day, it's also, I feel like, kind of a blessing in disguise with Lee being out, because all the kids, the younger guys, now get a chance to like prove themselves.
Mm-hmm. Our friend Jimmy has been saying since the beginning of the season, let the kids play.
Yeah. And look, they're rewarding them. Bellows, his confidence has clearly kind of shot through the roof after that 2-goal game, and he's doing a really admirable job of filling the Lee archetype a little bit. He doesn't, as I was saying it in the recap video for the Washington game, they were missing that Lee, just net front presence a little bit in that Washington game. But I think if they can get Kiefer to start doing that, because Kiefer is actually pretty comparable in stature and size. I think Anders still had like 10 to 15 pounds on him, but he's a big guy, Bellows. He's still like 215, and get in the goalie's face, create a screen. I think Martin this year has even gotten to do that a little bit. So maybe they might need some guys that are more of the grinder / power forward variety to pick up the slack in Lee's absence. Although nobody can do it like Anders in terms of like screening on this team.
Yeah,
I think also one thing I did want to mention, and maybe this can segue into the next section. I think, right? Yeah. Hot or not, right? So who do we think is rolling? Who do we think is like really struggling right now? I was going to, so I'll start just to get it started off, and then you guys, if there's still more you wanted to mention about the upcoming games, maybe we could kind of fold it together. But I would say the whole fourth line is probably hot. Like maybe like not as hot as they were a week ago, because I think they've been picking up a lot of the slack. Or maybe not slack, but they've been definitely producing, and they've been remarkably consistent. In the beginning of the season, they were definitely slow. They weren't being as physical. Now I think like they're back to their physical play and being more productive than we would expect them to. So I'm going to leave it at that. So that's who I think is kind of rolling. And then if you guys have like an individual player or something like that, or
no, you took the words right out of my mouth, James. I was gonna say the fourth line, and I will defend that fourth line until the day I die. They are just so aggressive and so just scrappy.
Yeah, I think they've been skating really well. They, like you said, James, like this past stretch of games, it didn't show as much on the score sheet, but I think they were still doing their job, and I'm sure Trotz would probably say that they've done their share of the work recently. I would say for my hot player of the week, I guess I have to give it to Kiefer because he kind of rescued us in that middle game. And then even though it was, not really a skill-based play, his third goal, the one that Sebastian Aho just shot into him and it went in, he put himself in the place that I want him to be, which is the net front in the absence of Lee. And even though it was an accident, he still scored. But yeah, he had a big week. His confidence is very high. And, eventually Bailey and Lee are going to, they're like in their mid-20s. They don't have a ton of prime left. Although Lee, I think, is 29. I think Bailey's already 30, and he signed for like 4 more years. They're going to need Kiefer going forward. And for him to have a week like he had this week feels like just a gigantic step forward for him. And eventually for the whole organization, if he's eventually going to be like the first line. Like, I think the dream is Barzal, Bellows, Wallstrom, first line. And you're just like, the kids.
Oh, that would be amazing.
One thing also I wanted to mention, Letty. I wanted to give him at least a shout out because I think he's been like, while he hasn't been producing any points, he's been skating, I think, probably what feels like to me probably the best out of the defensemen. I don't know if Tom would agree with that. I don't know what your opinion is on Letty, but I feel like he's been way more present, doing like a lot of really good zone entries, which is something we've definitely improved on since last season. So I don't know, maybe I'll stick with the fourth line as the hot, but then a shout out, an honorable mention to Letty, and then depending on how he does, this week, maybe he'll have the honor of being my my hot player next week.
I think what you said about Letty being the best skater of the defensemen is definitely, it probably would have been Devon Taves last year, but with Letty being the last like kind of rover, I miss Devon obviously, but it came down to they had to sign Pollock and they had to sign Barzal. And, with how well Dobson's played, it's made the Taves loss not as bad. And like you said, Letty, he actually has like 15 assists, I think, on the year.
Oh, I didn't know.
He only has the one 15 goal.
15 assists?
Yeah, but a lot of them, the reason that people haven't noticed is a lot of them are like secondary assists. So those aren't as prominent. It's not what you remember. You don't remember the pass to the pass that led to the goal as much. Right. Unless it's like a tic-tac-toe goal.
Unless it's Varlamov that makes the secondary assist. Then
yeah. Who's got 2 assists this year, so he's doing great. I think Letty, the zone entry thing is a big part. We also need that to start being more of a thing on the power play because we struggled last night, especially with like zone entries. And that's something that is consistent to last year too. But who's your not player, James?
I was going to go, I feel bad saying this, but I'm going to go with Bailey. He's just been holding the puck way too long in the offensive zone. And it's like, that was so evident in the Washington game. On every power play he was on, it was just like he was waiting too long to pass and he wasn't shooting. So it was just like he was giving because I don't know anything about like the tacticalness of hockey, but I'd assume, right, like when you're in the offensive zone, you have to, if you pass the puck enough, right, like you'll catch one of the players out of their spot. So then that'll open up a lane or something. And so he just waits too long. He's been waiting too long, and then, the Capitals or whoever they're playing has enough time to kind of make sure everything's covered. So that's the only thing that's been frustrating about Bailey. But from what I've heard, that's what people are always frustrated with Bailey. So
it's a double-edged sword because sometimes he waits that long and you're like, shoot it, do something, and he finds somebody like back post that you're like, how the hell, and they score off it. So when he's at his best, that's what's happening. When he's struggling a little bit, what you're seeing right now is maybe a little bit of confidence lacking because he's holding the puck a little bit. But honestly, since that is also an aspect of his game that can work, I hate to say it because there's always going to be people that are like, you need to make changes constantly. But like, if that's Bailey's game and he just needs to keep working at it, keep doing what he's doing, and eventually it'll work. And nobody ever wants to hear that because everybody wants immediate success. But, that's Bailey's game. I've kind of resigned myself to it over the years. He's probably not going to shoot ever, but he will find a really, really good pass a lot of the time. Just not over the last few games.
Okay, so Sarah, who do you think your not player of the week is?
Well, going off of what you said with Bailey, he's also given up a lot of turnovers. Like, he's had these passes where you think it's going to go to where it's supposed to go, and it's just completely off, and then the other team's player gets it and just takes it.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, I am a Bailey sympathizer, so...
I am too. I really do like Bailey, personally, but it's just, if I had, it's kind of like, I think, Tom, you picked Bailey last week, too, for the not player, just because they are playing well. So if Bailey's, just maybe not at his best right now, and that's the worst we can say about the team, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and he is, it's a little bit streaky with him sometimes, too. So, there are peaks and valleys, and I think right now is a bit of a valley, but, he'll get one assist, and then that'll start getting him going again. Sarah, what you were saying about Bailey definitely rang true in the overtime of the shootout game against the Devils. Yeah. He had a play where he's standing one-on-one with the goalie, and he holds on to it a bit too long. A defender comes in, sweeps the puck away, and we took a penalty. And now we're killing a penalty in overtime, which is not a good thing. You don't want to have to do that. Luckily, Mayfield had one of his better shifts of the last, actually probably one of his better shifts of the season on that penalty kill, and Cizikas on that penalty kill, and Pellich. So they saved us. But like you said, the turnovers, a little bit scary. He was trying to do a little bit too much there, Josh. And he's at his best when he's kind of doing passing, not shooting. Basically. And that's not like a bad thing, you need somebody to be the playmaker.
Yeah. And also, I don't know if you guys will agree with me or not, I feel like Beauvillier has been, since he came back from his injury, he's been kind of quiet, kind of MIA.
Yeah, he's my not player of the week.
Wow.
I was going to go right into that. Yeah. That's exactly what I've been thinking, really. It's definitely the little things he's still doing fine. He's with his speed, he does a really good job of navigating the neutral zone and dumping it, and then somehow being the first person to it. I've still noticed that. So it's not like a lack of effort. It's I think for him, confidence isn't fantastic, and missing games probably didn't help that. And last night it was evident the game was pretty much already over. It was after we pulled the goalie. But the puck ended up on his stick with everybody, everyone on both teams kind of slow to react. And so he had a split second where if he shoots it, I'm almost certain he scores. And he held on to it, and then he just tried to throw it through the crease, and it just went through. So, Bo, when Bo's confident, he will not hesitate like that. I think that was something that Brock had a little bit in the beginning of the season. He wasn't firing that wrist shot that I like to see Brock do. And now look at Brock. He got one to go, and now Brock has 12 goals, and he's got the most on the team, or he's tied with Vanders. So, I think a lot of what we've said with Bailey, with Bo, it's like it just takes one thing to break right for them, and all of a sudden, they're like, oh, great. I'm doing the right thing. And, sometimes when you don't have a tangible result, like a goal or an assist, it doesn't feel like that. But for Bo, I would say keep doing what he's doing, minus the hesitation stuff. Just get it on net.
Yeah.
What's on net?
Yeah. I mean, we saw in one of the Devil the second, they all bleed into each other. The second Devil game, Brock just threw it on net with a second left, and it goes in. So
that was sick.
That was a huge goal too.
Was that the third game?
Yeah, now sometimes they just bleed into each other.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say I'm going to guess it was the third game because it was 2-1 after 1.
Mm-hmm.
Islanders, and then... So, yeah. That's what I'm going to guess.
was the third game. It was the shootout
Yeah,
game.
he scored it at 19:58 in the first period. Yeah, no, I could actually. It's funny that you mentioned Bo because last week he was my hot player. That's I just remembered, and it was because he was. I still stand by this. He's still hustling like crazy.
Oh yeah,
but it's just not converting into goals and points and stuff. So I think it will, like he's putting the work in, which does bring me to one point I did want to make before we get to the last part of the show. Everybody was making fun. You guys probably saw this on Twitter. Everybody's making fun of the Islanders in I think it was the second Washington power play. They're just Ovi's standing in the circle, like not moving at all in his favorite spot, and just waiting to get the puck and drive it into the net.
And he did.
Right, exactly. Well, it went back to something that you guys said. I think Sara, you said about Tavares, and it just made me think. I haven't seen Tavares play a lot. Like I'm a later Islanders fan, so I've only seen a few games with him in it, and like obviously I've seen him play in Toronto a little bit, but like he's so good, but yet he's like kind of lazy, right? Like he's not, I guess, as much of a hustler, and it's like same thing kind of with Ovi, where it's just like he can turn on the Jets or he can turn on like the talent or whatever, but like they can stand there and wait for the pass that they want versus like trying to like I guess go to the dirty areas and stuff. So I feel like then the Islanders represent the complete opposite of that, where it's just like there's like a decent amount of talent on the team, but no superstars. And I mean, I guess Barzal remains to be seen, but
it's seen. He's
seen.
The man.
And I guess that's just like the Trot system, though, right? Just
it's a lot of hard work and just dumping the puck in. I think, and now I'm angry at you, James. Do you know why? Because you've made me defend John Tavares. Tavares, I don't think it's that he's a lazy player. He is just not a fast skater. And
I wouldn't know personally. Like I haven't watched enough hockey with him, so a lot of my opinions are.
I'm still angry at you.
A lot of my opinions are reformulated things that you've said.
But so I watched Tavares basically his whole time with the Islanders, and I think it was just more so, and I think this was something that was a knock on him, even when he was being drafted. Even though, everybody was like, "Oh yeah, he's the first overall pick for sure." But here's the thing that he could work on, and it was skating. There were times when he was an Islander before I turned on him, before the dark side. Well, actually, no, it's the better times now. But he's just not the fastest skater, and I think maybe that can make it look like he's lazy. And in Ovechkin's case, he had the lazy tag placed on him for years. And I think for years it was actually probably somewhat correct, because that play, the meme where he was just standing and watching everybody else play, for years he wasn't a great defensive player at all. And the joke was he just wouldn't get back on defense. But our buddy Barry Trotz kind of lit a fire under him. And part of their cup run was getting Ovi to become more of a team player, play a little bit of defense, generally just know where he is needed. And I think that has led to Ovi just knowing this is my part of the ice. I'm a huge part of this power play. And from an Islander perspective, I want that to be Ryan Pulock one day, if he can ever get the puck on net. But I think it's more in Ovi's case, just he knows where his strength is, and it is just ripping that shot. And I have him in fantasy, but I still wasn't happy. Don't worry. Yeah. Even though I have them in fantasy, I had the Capitals goalie too in fantasy. And I was like, I don't care if it screws my fantasy game. I'm okay with the Islanders putting 5 past them. And this is the reason that you start these goalies against the Islanders, is because you get to be happy or you get to win.
Oh, I see.
If the Islanders destroy him, you lose your game, but you're happy.
Mm-hmm.
If he plays well, it's a consolation for the Islanders not winning.
Yeah, I'm not in the hockey.
This has been Tom's fantasy corner.
Sorry, do you play fantasy hockey?
No, I've tried to do it, but it's just I don't know. It's complicated.
It is, and even
you
though
keep up with it a lot.
Oh yeah, Oh yeah, it is. And even though I do it, I do hate it. And I am the commissioner, so I don't know why I do it. But it's just like I don't know. It's good for those nights where the Islanders aren't playing, and you're like, oh great, I can watch Ovi put 5 past Pittsburgh and help my fantasy team. But
so okay, one last question I have, and then we'll get into the last segment. This is kind of I haven't again. I'm guilty of not watching enough hockey this season. Is there anybody on the Flyers that you guys are like kind of looking out for in the upcoming 3 games?
I don't. It's not just because I have him in fantasy, but I've noticed him being a good player this year. James Van Riemsdyk he's got like 13 goals on the year, something like that. He's had a really, really good bounce back year after a few tough years for Philly. He's like 31, so he's not getting any younger. But he's been excellent this year. He's got an Anders Lee type game a little bit. And he's really good on the power play. He's a big guy. He gets in your face. So not having Anders to counter that worries me a little bit.
Interesting. Okay. Sarah, do you have any input on the Flyers?
Just based off of last year when they played them in the playoffs, Travis, how do you say his last name?
Oh, Konechny.
Travis Konechny. I think he's somebody you got to watch out for.
Travis.
Yeah, he likes to get in players' heads. He's one of those guys that'll like check you from behind and then be like, "Get up, you diver," and you'll be like, "Oh, you." So yeah, that'll be.
Yikes.
And he also, I think there's a bit of a fire under him too because he got healthy scratched a few times this year, and sometimes that wakes a player up. We saw Leo played a little bit better after getting scratched a couple games, so it does something to a player.
Yeah, definitely. So okay, cool. So bring us to the last segment.
Well done.
Thank you.
Words are hard.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna keep my day job. So instead of doing around the league in 60 seconds, everybody's favorite segment, we hear all about it. You guys comment about it all the time. It's all good. We're each gonna go for our favorite Islanders thing in history, in all of Islanders history.
Should we narrow it to favorite Islanders memory, even though that's
sure? Okay, it has to be
it's
your.
a little
memory.
bit more.
It has to be your memory. Favorite Islanders memory. Period. Yeah. So from any season. I think I have mine picked out. Mine's probably a little, like, I don't know, obvious. You want me to start? And then,
sure.
So I don't just keep on talking about what it is without saying it. When Varlamov slid after they won the game against, was it Tampa?
Tampa.
Yeah. It was the first game they won against Tampa, right?
Second game.
It was a second game.
Yeah, that was the game that kept the series going.
Yeah. That was like I feel like you never see Varlamov flinch. So to actually see him, actually show emotion and stuff was awesome. And it felt nice because we knew that he was going to be around this season, and obviously Grice wasn't. So it was it felt felt wholesome and just it was
sliding into our hearts.
Sliding into our hearts. Yep, exactly. So a little bit of an easy one, I guess, because it's recent. But again, I've only been a real true fan, paying attention to the whole season for the past 2 years or so. So yeah. What about you guys?
The one that sticks out to me, I forget which game it was in. I think it was when they played the Capitals, one of the last games they played the Capitals. My bias is shown here because Pajot is my favorite player right now. When he scored that goal, when it was tied, and then he scored to either tied it up or he won the game for them, but it was against the Capitals over the summer.
Let's see. So it was Caps and Islanders. I want to see if I can find it.
I know I'm being very
No, it's fine. So it was Caps and Islanders.
The playoff series.
Yeah.
Pajot. I know he scored in that series. I know because I don't know why I'm forgetting that particular goal, but I do remember him scoring in the game that we lost He scored like the first goal, and then Barzal scored, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna sweep the Caps, and then we blew it.
Oh wait, yeah, because we beat them in 5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is so crazy because they had a different coach last year, right?
Yeah, we got him fired.
We did.
Yeah, like him getting tactically spanked by Barry got him dumped.
Yikes.
Big time. I think he landed somewhere as like an assistant.
So wait, so
Got
then
promoted.
do you remember which game it was, Sarah? Because I'm looking. So we apparently shut them out in Game 5, which now I'm remembering.
Oh yeah. Oh, I remember that one.
So it wasn't that one. Let's see. Capitals outworked, lacked scoring while losing an Eastern first round.
Who wrote that headline?
Tom Galitti.
Oh, I thought you were gonna just say my name.
No.
I was
Me
like,
too. I was waiting for it.
No.
I was like, I know what you are. What am I? Apparently, a bad
I will find
headline
out the
writer.
name of this game or which game it was, and I will put it in. I'll write it right here. I'll write the name.
Mhm.
I'll put it in text.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right, Tom. What is your favorite Islanders memory of all time?
I have a lot that are tough to
pick
choose
one.
from. I'm gonna go with there's so many I could go for that were in person, but I'm gonna go with one that wasn't in person. And so it was my sophomore year of college. That was the Florida series, and the deciding game with us up 3-2, looking for our first series win since 1993. So I hadn't been born, and we're losing most of the game. I'm watching the reason it's such a big thing is I was watching with like all my Islander friends at school, and we're all packed into my dorm room. We're watching on this tiny TV, and Tavares scores the game tying goal with like under a minute left, and we're just losing it. RA knocks on our door. Are you guys okay? And we're like, yeah, we're better than okay. And then he's like, all right, no problem. He was cool. And then when we win it in OT through Tavares, just like we're sprinting around. We're on the 3rd floor too. So we got everybody under us probably like, what the hell is going on up there? And we're just screaming, running around the room. Everybody's hugging each other. The RA knocked on the door again. He's like, are you okay? We like dragged him into the room. We were like, yeah. He's like, I don't know what's going on at all. But
Turns
yeah,
out he was a Rangers fan. And then,
oh God, that would have been awkward.
Yeah.
But just like there's a lot of different memories from college of like, because that's how I was able to meet a lot of people through me having the NHL package where I could watch any game at any time. They were like, hey, can I watch the Islanders? I'm like, yeah. But yeah, that was so much fun. And yeah, I think that's a lot of the fun of hockey is, meeting people through it and then getting to enjoy the really good times together.
Definitely.
Yeah. Tom is a wizard at getting people to love the Islanders. I would say like he's gotten me to love the Islanders, and he's gotten our friend Dan, who's a Rangers fan, to at least tolerate the Islanders.
To sympathize at points.
Yeah,
I think I think with him, since he's a Met fan, I was able to get him to like be like, well, they're kind of the Mets, and he was like, all right. But even like one of my roommates we went to school with was from Jersey. He was never really into hockey, and we would watch all the games in his dorm. And I was like, he was like, I think I'm going to get into hockey. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. And he's like, I'm going to be an Islander fan. I was like, really? I was like, no, you should be a Jersey fan. Like, definitely, like, it's your home state and everything. And he's like, no, it's too much fun. I got to be an Islander fan. I'm like, that's the first person that's ever said that.
You were trying to turn them away, too. You couldn't
Yeah, I will, because I was like, oh, I don't want to just drag people. I don't want to make people root for the team. But he was like, no, it's just so much fun having these get-togethers and watching the games together.
Our friend Brad, who was also on a live stream we did, is from Buffalo, but he's now an Islanders fan too. Or I guess he's always kind of been an Islanders fan.
Yeah, because he has Long Island ties
Okay,
through one of his parents, and so that family is split. There's some Buffalo fans, there's some Long Island fans. So he's unfortunate enough to be a Jet fan as well as me, and of course, right now. The Buffalo fans are winning that side. But you know what?
Yeah.
They also have the Sabres, so, things even out, and we have the Islanders.
Yeah, that's true. Sarah, is anybody in your family? Well, obviously, you said your dad was a big Islanders fan. What about anybody else?
No, just me and my dad. I'm really the only one in my immediate family who remotely even cares about sports.
That's crazy.
Besides my dad, so.
But very cool. So, I think that's it. Anything else you guys want to add?
No.
No? Okay.
That's my obligatory Nick Miller face.
So, all right, awesome. So, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Of course, yeah, of course. Really, like it was fun. You're more than welcome to come back in the future. Maybe we'll try and have a few other Islanders Twitter people, that try and catch some other people and see if they want to be on the show. So, all right, thank you so much for watching, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.